In his school and student years, Jung developed profound interest in philosophy and the humanities. This was especially the case of Nietzsche, but also Kant and Schopenhauer. In this video, I quote from the book Memories, Dreams, Reflections, where he talks about the influence Schopenhauer and Kant had on his thinking, but also how he disagreed with Schopenhauer's answer to the world as will. As I quote, "But the great finding results from my researches was Schopenhauer. He was the first to speak of the suffering of the world, which visibly and glaringly surrounds us, and of confusion, passion, evil, all those things which the others hardly seem to notice and always try to resolve into all-embracing harmony and comprehensibility. Here at last was a philosopher who had the courage to see that all was not for the best in the fundaments of the universe. He spoke neither of the all-good and all-wise providence of a creator, nor of the harmony of the cosmos, but stated bluntly that a fundamental flaw underlay the sorrowful cause of human history and the cruelty of nature, the blindness of the world-creating will. This was confirmed not only by the early observations I had made of diseased and dying fishes, of mangy foxes, frozen or starved birds, of the pitiless tragedies concealed in a flowery meadow, earthworm tormented to death by ants, insects that tore each other apart piece by piece, and so on. My experiences with human beings too had taught me anything rather than a belief in man's original goodness and decency. I knew well enough to know that I was only gradually, as it were, distinguishing myself from an animal. Schopenhauer's sombre picture of the world had my undivided approval, but not his solution of the problem. I felt sure that by will he really meant God, the creator, and that he was saying that God was blind, since I knew from experience that God was not offended by any blasphemy, that on the contrary he could even encourage it because he wished to evoke not only man's bright and positive side, but also his darkness and ungodliness. Schopenhauer's view did not distress me. I considered it a verdict justified by the facts, but I was all the more disappointed by his theory that the intellect need only confront the blind will with its image in order to cause it to reverse itself. How could the will see this image at all, since it was blind? And why should it, even if it could see, thereby be persuaded to reverse itself, since the image would show it precisely that it willed? And what was the intellect? It was a function of the human soul, not a mirror, but a fragment of a mirror such as a child might hold up to the sun, expecting the sun to be dazzled by it. I was puzzled that Schopenhauer should even have been satisfied with such an inadequate answer. Because of this, I was impelled to study him more thoroughly, and I became increasingly impressed by his relation to Kant. I therefore began reading the works of this philosopher, above all his Critique of Pure Reason, which put me to some hard thinking. My efforts were rewarded, for I discovered the fundamental flaw, so I thought, in Schopenhauer's system. He had committed the deadly sin of hypostatizing a metaphysical assertion, and of endowing a mere noumenon with special qualities. I got this from Kant's theory of knowledge, and it afforded me an even greater illumination, if that were possible, than Schopenhauer's pessimistic view of the world. This philosophical development extended from my 17th year until well into the period of my medical studies. It brought about a revolutionary alteration of my attitude to the world and to life. Whereas formerly I had been shy, timid, mistrustful, pallid, thin, and apparently unstable in health, I now began to display a tremendous appetite on all fronts. I knew what I wanted and went after it. I also became noticeably more accessible and more communicative. I discovered that poverty was no handicap and was far from being the principal reason for suffering, that the sons of the rich really did not enjoy any advantages over the poor and ill-clad boys. There were far deeper reasons for happiness and unhappiness than one's allotment of pocket money. As soon as I was by myself at home or out in the country, Schopenhauer and Kant returned in full force, and with them the grandeur of God's world. My scientific knowledge also formed a part of it, and filled the great canvas with vivid colours and figures. Then number one and his worries about the choice of a profession sank below the horizon. But when I returned from my expedition into the centuries, I brought with me a kind of hangover. I, or rather number one, lived in the here and now, and sooner or later would have to form a definite idea of what profession he wished to pursue. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like, comment and subscribe, as I will be doing more videos on philosophy, psychology and symbolism in future videos.